What is going on, Devils fans? And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. As always, it is your boy, your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano. And welcome to a very exciting edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your New Jersey Devils. And as always, guys, I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you're listening to this podcast episode. And thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. You already know that I greatly appreciate it. Shout out to all of our sponsors down below. SeatGeek, make sure to use my promo code Devil's State of Mind to get $20 off your first purchase at any sporting event or any concert event of your choosing. Shout out to DraftKings Sportsbook, and, guys, with the MLB playoffs well underway now, NFL season and college football rolling, and obviously the NHL season starts this week. And with all that going on and so much more, you already know that DraftKings Sportsbook is your number one destination to get in on all of the huge cash prizes. So make sure to use my promo code THPN when you sign up for DraftKings and tell them that your boy Neil Villapiano sent you. And last but certainly not least, shout out to Horns and Tail Napa Valley for being the official wine club of the New Jersey Devils and the official wine sponsor of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, with absolutely tremendous tasting wine and personalized Devils bottles for the Devils fan in your life. Make sure to use my promo code Devil's State to get 10% off all of your purchases. So again, shout out to all of our sponsors down below. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our first guest joining us here on Season 5 of the Devil's State of Mind podcast. He was actually my first guest last season, just before we got underway in the 2022-23 campaign. And things are certainly a lot different going into this upcoming, which should be a very exciting 23-24 season. So it is with great pleasure that we welcome on New Jersey Hockey Now's own James Nichols. James, welcome back to the Devil's State of Mind podcast. I know, obviously, the Devils threw you a little bit of a wrench earlier today with a little bit later practice, but nonetheless, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be the first for the season and keeping consistency from last year, too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I was going to say second year in a row for you that you're the first guy that kind of jumps on, man. And like I said before, we're really excited to have you on the podcast. So let's just kind of jump right into it with, we had a couple of injury updates that were given to us via Lindy Ruff earlier this morning. Here we're recording this on the 8th of October. This episode will come out on Monday, the 9th. And if you could quickly just give us another update, just real quick on the injuries surrounding the Devils right now.
Yeah, so Eric Hallow was missing from his, I believe it's his second practice in a row. No real update on what is bothering him. We were just told that he has a little bit of a nagging injury, but he was seen walking around the arena as we were heading out, and he looked perfectly fine. No ailments, nothing, no braces, nothing like that. So just day-to-day right now for Eric Howla. I anticipate it's nothing serious. As for Nolan Foote, he has an upper body injury. We know he got struck in the face a couple of practices ago. He only got into 2 preseason games. But we don't have a time frame for when he will return, according to Lindy Ruff. Right now, it's just a day-to-day thing. But, I think that's right now just loose terminology. It could end up being maybe a little bit more, but it is an upper body injury, and he didn't disclose what exactly it was. And same goes for Keith Kincaid. He was hurt in the first preseason game during the split squads. He went up to Montreal, and he's day-to-day with an upper body injury as well. That's an interesting situation to me, just because I'm not exactly sure, and I'm working to get the details on this, on how it works out between his affiliation with the Devils and the independent AHL club with the Chicago Wolves. Right now, he's injured under the Devils. I don't know how that works out as far as, going back down to the AHL with Chicago, since they're independent, but, working to get those details as we speak. So.
Is it possible that guys like Keith Kincaid and Nolan Foote could theoretically make the team out of camp, but then immediately be put on IR just so that, there's more space for other guys?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think you're going to see that happen, like we saw last year with Simone Nemec. He made the official opening night roster, and the very next day, it was Kevin Ball on the team instead, and Simone Nemec went back down. So yeah, you could definitely see some paper transactions like that. Chris Tierney's still up with the team right now. So, you wonder if he's maybe just insurance for Eric Howler, just in case maybe he's not ready for opening night. Again, that's not the anticipation, but you definitely could see some paper transactions. So, although, at 5 o'clock on Monday or today, as you're hearing this, we should get a clearer picture of what the regular season roster looks like. With these injuries in play, it might be a little bit different, a couple days after the initial roster is announced.
And the last time I checked, the Devils still have about 5 or 6 cuts to make before they get down to the final roster. So things will obviously look different, probably even by the time you guys are listening or watching this episode. But let's kind of talk about the preseason, James. And the Devils had what I would consider to be somewhat of an unexpected and very, very successful preseason, as they ended up going a perfect 7-0 to become the first team since the 2016-17 Colorado Avalanche to reach that mark. Now, even though it is just preseason and you take everything with a grain of salt, what does an accomplishment like this to some degree mean to the team as a whole?
Yeah, it's interesting to look at just because again, you look at the 7-0 Colorado Avalanche a couple of years ago, and then you look at what they did in the regular season, and they were the worst team in the
Right.
2016-17 season, possibly had the worst record in the NHL for, a number of years. But
Yeah.
um, you know, just looking at how it transpired, right? Lindy Ruff obviously was toying with, his lines. Obviously, he knows who his locks are going to be. Toffoli, Hughes, and Bratt.
Mhm.
Keisher and Meyer are going to be together. It looks like Mercer's going to start there with them.
Right.
But then some of the bottom six guys and trying out Holtz in the top six. He's toying with his rosters. He's trying to figure out who's going to be where. Um, it really speaks to and although going 7-0 means nothing for the Devils in the small picture, the bigger picture here, it looks at the organizations aligned.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you can see the system is being preached not only at the NHL level, but the system is being preached at the AHL level and even the ECHL level in Adirondack, right?
Yeah.
The system that they want is constant puck pressure. If you don't have that puck, go get it. If you do have that puck, work it, make sure to, have it on your stick for the appropriate amount of time, get it to the next guy, push it up the ice, and
Mhm.
get that puck in the back of the net. And you really saw that throughout the entire lineup, right? It wasn't just the Jack Hughes line that was putting the puck in the net. Although Jesper Bratt, did lead not only the Devils but the NHL in points,
He did.
you saw everybody chipping in. So it was really prevalent when you saw it right in front of you, game 7 against the Islanders, when it was largely a junior varsity Devils team playing a
Yeah.
full NHL, or mostly NHL lineup in the New York Islanders. They
Mhm.
won 3-0. It was a great game for Schmid. It was a good game for Nemec. You saw Santeri Hataka play really well. You saw
That's your
Max
guy.
Doman play really well. That is my guy, Santeri Hataka. I'm big on
If you
him.
haven't read
Um,
James's articles on Santeri Hataka, you got him, man. He is pumping his tires more than
yeah.
anybody I see out there.
Yeah, he's excellent. So you see all these depth players playing the same system for New Jersey. The goals throughout the organization are all aligned, and it just speaks volumes to how well connected Fitzgerald and everybody under him and his regime have really made the organization so cohesive, and that's why they're having this amount of success. It also says, look, everybody didn't really expect New Jersey to do as well as they did last year. And then they pop, right? 112
Right.
points. And it was a bit of a surprise to everybody. With a young roster with the average age of like 25 years old, it wouldn't have been a surprise to see them stumble into the preseason and not take it seriously because it was, oh, we're so good last year.
Right.
It's gonna be a cakewalk this year. But that's not what happened. They came in business, mindset, business state of mind, and everybody just was ready to get to work, nose to the grind, and no fooling around. I mean, this training camp compared to last training camp, the level of competition and the intensity was leaps and bounds different.
Yeah.
It was far more competitive this year, despite the majority of the roster knowing that they were going to be in New Jersey.
Mhm.
So it just speaks to how determined the roster is to take another step forward this year. Speaks to how the organization has aligned all of its goals, and next man up mentality is not just a term that they're throwing around. It's a real
Yeah.
thing.
I think the thing that stood out to me the most from what you said is that you're talking about just the overall system doesn't translate just to the Devils, but also to Utica, but also to Adirondack as well. Like it's just a full organizational mindset of this is how we're going to play, and this is the type of players that we want, and this is how we're going to develop them. And you mentioned the last game against the Islanders, the 3-0 win. And again, it was a majority of guys that are not going to make the roster. They're going to be down in Utica and even Adirondack, but those guys went out and they played a really, really solid game and got themselves a win that was probably very unexpected considering the Islanders were playing a good chunk of their regular players. So I think overall, it certainly showed even more that the Devils have a lot more depth in their organization than people actually realize. In terms of the regulars, James, who were some of the regular guys throughout the preseason that kind of really stood out to you? I mean, for me personally, I think the guy that stood out to most is to me is just the way Toffoli played with Jack Hughes and Bratt. But I want to get your outlook as well.
Yeah, Toffoli is a good one. I mean, I said from day one, he's not going to be the most glorious skater out there, but he's really smart. He's positionally sound. He knows, where to be on the ice. And even though Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt are so much faster than him, he just still seems to always be in the right spot at the right time. And he has that shot that's just going to, be able to bank 30 goals for the Devils, 30 or more goals for the Devils this year. So I was really pleased to see how well he was with, Hughes and Bratt cohesively. Other guys, obviously Bratt, went on that torrid scoring pace in the preseason. Hopefully that momentum can carry over. I think the biggest standouts for me though was the pairing of Kevin Ball and John Marino. That
Hmm.
is going to be a big storyline for the Devils this year. Not because less so because of John Marino, more so because of Kevin Ball, right?
Mhm.
Ryan Graves leaves in the offseason, big shoes to fill, and Kevin Ball said when he signed that deal, like, look, I'm happy that I got this deal done, but like, I'm not complacent. I'm not, comfortable here. I need to be better and get better every day. And he's really showed that. He looks like a steady, stay at home, dependable top four defenseman. He's showing a little bit more confidence with the puck, which is a really nice addition to his arsenal. And he's looking like, the shoes that have been left from the summer are pretty much already filled. I want to see how it works out in the regular season. But so far, he looks like a really confident player who I've been pleased with. Every day on the ice, whether it's practice, whether it's scrimmage, whether it's
Yeah.
a preseason game, he's just been top notch.
Yeah, Kevin Ball is a really interesting because I remember him after he signed his most recent contract this past offseason. He had talked about that there was a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning where he really felt like he started to find his zone in the NHL and then create that confidence. And you saw, like you mentioned, throughout the preseason, he looked very, very comfortable back there. He looks a lot more confident. He's using his body, as we saw in that big time hit against the Rangers. This is a kid that definitely looks like he's ready to take that next step into being a really, really dependable NHL defenseman. And I'm really curious to see where they end up playing him in terms of that left side. I know it seems like more likely he plays in that third pairing, but I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if he ended up being on a second pairing with John Marino, but I think it's all going to depend on where Lindy Ruff sees the best fit. So, yeah, there were certainly a lot of the regulars that looked exactly the way that we expected, and hopefully they can continue that into the regular season. Now, in terms of the guys that are the fringe, not a guaranteed lock, the one guy that stands out the most has to be Alex Holtz. Now, he had a couple of really good moments, I felt like, in the preseason, especially early on. There were other times where he made some, mistakes in his own zone that kind of remind you of, he's still trying to, it seems like he's still trying to find his game. But I want to get your perspective, James. Do you feel that Holtz has earned the right to be on this roster? And as of right now, where do you see him fitting? Because it looked like he was building really good chemistry with Timo Meyer and Nico Hischier. And now, earlier today at practice, he was practicing on a third line with Curtis Lazar and Andre Palat, and they wanted to play Mercer up top. Like, where do you see all of this going?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with the initial. Does he deserve to be on the roster? I think he had a strong first half of the preseason, and then things kind of maybe got away from him a little bit. I was telling Ryan earlier today, I think with him, it's just a consistency thing. Maybe he gets a little bit in his own head. Maybe, he's, you know, unsure of himself at times, and sometimes you could see that on the ice. But there are moments where he looks really good, and that was for the majority of the first half of the preseason. And then there are moments where you kind of scratch your head and you say, "Where did that come from?" He was playing really strong. So I think what my frame of thought on Holt right now is he deserves to be there for the opening night and maybe on a bit of probation. See how he does with against full NHL rosters. See if he's not a liability defensively. We know he's going to score goals, right? He did that
Right.
in the preseason. A couple really nice feeds from Timo Meyer. He knows what to do with the puck once he gets it, in a high danger area. That's not going to be the question that they have for Holtz. The question is going to be: is he winning his puck battles? Is he moving his feet in the defensive zone? Is he covering his man? Is he covering his zone? Um, and sometimes he does it really well, other times it gets away from him. So it's just a matter of consistency for him. I think they put him on probation. He'll make the opening night roster. Maybe he's not going to play in that top six role today. He was skating with, like you said, Mercer. I'm sorry, he was skating with Palat, and what I think is going to be Eric Howla. I think Curtis
Right.
Lazar down to that fourth line, and I think that might be the right role for him because
Mhm.
um, he's not going to be playing against top competition in top six NHLers and on opposing teams. He'll play against bottom six guys who he could probably, find his scoring touch a little bit more and not have to worry so much about the defensive game with Eric Howla and, Andre Palat on a line with him. So maybe eventually he works his way up. But I do think that he showed that he's much improved from last season. He's definitely faster, thinking faster, skating faster, making decisions faster. It's definitely an improved Alexander Holtz. Um, I just don't know how consistent or his consistency has improved. He hasn't shown it yet.
Right.
And I think that they'll take a look at that in the regular season by having him start there, probably on the third line, and
Mhm.
continue to evaluate where to go from there.
I remember talking to Alexander Holtz and also Jesper Bratt's trainer earlier this offseason, and we were talking about what does Holtz need to work on to really get his game to the NHL level, and he obviously mentioned about getting him to be faster and play a little bit stronger, but he did mention a thing about him being in his own head, and I think you bring up a really good point about he does seem to at times when things are not going well and he's had a couple of bad shifts he doesn't really coast. It's just more like he gets distracted so much by it that he doesn't just try to move forward and try to just keep playing and produce and find ways to produce. So I'm curious to see how he would play on a role with Hala and Palat, where maybe he gets more of a responsibility to kind of push him to kind of be more responsible in both ends, and I think that that's something that's going to help Holt. So we'll see when we get the final roster and how things look, especially when we get towards opening night against the Red Wings. Now, let's talk about the back end. Now, there aren't too many questions, but the big question is going to be who is most likely going to fill that sixth position on that what assumed to be the third pairing with one of Kevin Ball or even maybe Luke Hughes if they move him down to that one. Now, Colin Miller was brought in and has at times kind of struggled in this Devils system, but again, it is preseason. Brendan Smith, kind of the same thing, but we know what the expectations are with Brendan Smith. And then you have Simone Nemec, who I thought overall had a really good preseason. He looked strong, he looked confident, he looked like that he looks like he's ready to play in the NHL. And I guess my question to you, James, is that do you agree with that assessment? Do you feel that it is time, or do you feel that more likely the Devils will go with what Fitzgerald said early this year, that they're not going to rush him, they're most likely going to send him back to Utica, and they'll start the year with veteran guys like Smith and Colin Miller?
Yeah, I tend to believe the latter just because, one, Lindy Ruff has explained that it's going to be hard to have two rookies on the blue line and be a competitive team like we were last year. But two, I see Brendan Smith still on the roster, Colin Miller's here now, and it's kind of hard to say to, those two guys at this time, like, hey, listen, like you're not gonna play tonight or you're gonna go down to the AHL. That's not gonna
Yeah,
happen. So what I see happening is there's the potential that Nemec maybe gets a couple games, right? Gets a
right.
first look at the NHL. I do think he showed some really great moments in the preseason. I also think that he showed some moments of weakness that he, can potentially work on down in the AHL. And I think the idea too is that they don't want Nemec, up with the NHLers and watching too much from above. They want him
Right.
playing every night. So with, you know, seven blue liners that are NHL caliber, including Smith and Miller. There's not enough room really for him. Like I said, maybe he'll get a couple games as a first look, or maybe he'll eventually be a first call up if there's an injury somewhere. So um, I think that he's much improved from last year. I think he still has a little bit more to go. Nothing
Right.
detrimental. Nothing to sit there and say, oh, he's not going to
Understandable.
be the second overall pick we chose him to be. I think he's every bit as valuable as he was when he was selected second overall. But he just has a few things that he's probably got to work out, and they want him doing that every night.
Right.
So I think he'll end up playing the majority of the year in Utica.
I think it's fair to say Tom Fitzgerald kind of learned his lesson a little bit from how things went with Holtz, where he ended up sitting in the box for 20 plus games before they finally sent him back down to Utica. And I don't think they want to do that with
Yeah,
Nemec. And I mentioned on Twitter that with Nemec, I just don't see it making sense for his development if he ends up being the seventh defenseman because he's not playing every day.
right.
I understand you can learn things from sitting up in the box, but at the same time, I feel like you're stunting his development a little bit, and I'd rather see him get top. Because he's going to probably get top pairing minutes with Utica if he goes down there. I think that's the overall expectation for him. So I feel like I would rather that be the case, and I wouldn't be surprised either if by the time you guys are listening to this, that maybe he gets sent down to Utica. So we'll see. Now, another prospect that I wanted to get your thoughts on because you've written about him several times over this year, and that is Santeri Hitaka, who the Devils acquired. One of the many people that the Devils acquired in the Timo Meier trade. I think people forget that there was a lot of pieces that were moved in
Yeah.
the Timo Meier deal. He actually had a really strong camp. He's a right shooting defenseman, made a late push for a spot before he was cut a couple of days ago. But what did you see from him in this training camp, and what do you like so much about his overall game?
I just love his simplicity. He's a really good, simple defenseman who makes all the little plays the right way. He's positionally sound. He's got good stick on puck defense. He's mobile, right? He's not just a defensive defenseman. He's a good two-way guy. He's got a
Right.
really good first breakout pass. He can skate the puck up the ice if there is no option to pass that puck. So I really like what I saw. Specifically, there was one play against the Islanders where um, you know, Kyle Palmieri got by Brennan Smith, and he was there for support and good stick on puck defense, stripped the puck from Palmieri and negated a scoring chance. You're going to see a lot of that from him, and I think he made it really tough for the Devils to have to turn around and say to him, "Look, like we're going to send you down to Utica." His waiver exemption probably has a lot to do with that, but
Yeah.
he played really strong, and I think the Devils and even Tom Fitzgerald said to me like uh, I didn't know what we were getting in this guy, and
Right.
he's really, really good. Like we really like what we got in this kid. So I thought it was hilarious when I was talking to him about it. And he just said to me, "I just texted my brother. What did you do here? This
Right.
guy's a good hockey player." So um, I would not be surprised to see him again this year.
He certainly has caught the eye of a lot of people. He, like you said, I thought he played a really, really good. I think he had a really good showing in preseason. I think if I'm not mistaken, he also played in the Prospects Challenge as well. So he's kind of played a lot of
Yeah,
hockey in the Devils organization just this offseason going into training camp. So he's certainly somebody you're to keep your eye on when the Utica season gets underway and when he starts playing. I'm really kind of curious to see what he can do. And Tom Fitzgerald, big fan of defensemen, and I know in his world you can never have too many good young defensemen. So that's definitely a luxury to get, especially knowing that he was just one of the many parts of the Timo Meier deal, and it's not bad to get a little bit extra that you didn't expect early on. So yeah, we'll definitely keep our eye on Hataka, and he's also got just such a great name, and I feel like the Devils always have to have at least one guy with a really, really cool name. It was Shakir Mukhamadullin before he was obviously dealt to San Jose, but I think now we got Hataka, so I'm really excited to see what he can do. Now let's talk about the goaltending because obviously, James, it's the question that will constantly be brought up throughout before the season starts, and it will continuously be brought up when the season gets underway. How did you feel both Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmid did? Because in my opinion, other than the 6-5 win over the Islanders, which, Schmid was in the whole time and he gave up 5 goals, looked a little shaky. I thought overall the goaltending looked really solid. But what are your thoughts on what you saw from them in the preseason?
Yeah, if you asked me before that seventh game, I probably would have said to you that I think VTech had a stronger preseason. But again, after that last game, I think they both had really strong preseasons, with that one game aside from Akira Schmid. So, look, the thing with Vitek Vanacek, and he was pretty adamant about early in camp, was that, look, I've come into this training camp with a much different mentality than I had last year. I got
Mm-hmm.
my feet wet in Washington with maybe a split workload in with I believe it was I can't remember. It was Ilya
Ilya
Samsonov, I believe.
Samsonov.
So he
Samsonov,
split
yeah.
workload with Samsonov, and he never played more than 40 something games, and this year
Right.
he was asked to play an extra 10 to 12 games, and that weighs a lot on a person, both physically and mentally. So he said he worked a lot on just his mentality, how to, maybe rebound from,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I just let up a goal that I probably should have had to save on. I got to let that go. So I do expect a strong year from VTech. He looked really calm, cool, and collected in net during the preseason, and I think he'll continue to be that Vanacek that was pretty much the backbone of 10 game win streaks for New
Yeah.
Jersey last year. And then Schmidt, on the other hand, he had that one blunder, but he really rebounded well against the Islanders in that seventh game. And, the thing is, too, the Devils played, yeah, a B squad, but that meant that he had that much more work to do. And, there were plenty of high danger chances for the Islanders to score, and Vitek Vanacek turned them all aside. And I'm sorry, it's Akira Schmidt turned them all aside.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he showed his ability to rebound and his ability to leave things in the past. So they've been saying in the locker room about how there's ice in his veins, and does he even have a pulse, because he's just so you know he's so calm about everything, and
Right.
you saw that this preseason. So I think that the Devils goaltending is in a pretty good situation right now. They have Vanacek and Schmid both going in with confidence. They luckily got Shalgren through waivers. I thought somebody might have scooped him up.
He had a really
We'll see.
solid preseason from what I saw.
Yeah,
I actually thought he played well.
yeah, he was pretty good. So, they have him and Utica, Keith Kincaid. We'll see what's going to happen with him as far as injury, but the goaltending looks to be in good shape, and that's a testament to the work that Fitzgerald did this summer.
Yeah, and obviously it's also a testament to both VTech and Akira to get themselves ready for this
Yeah,
upcoming year. And we know that it's going to be the biggest question mark from this team because everybody says, well, the Devils have so much firepower on offense. Their defense is still very, very good. But can this team win with the goaltending tandem that they have? And obviously there were a lot of rumors throughout the offseason about going after guys like Connor Hellebuck and UC Saros and John Gibson and this and the other thing. And obviously those questions can still come up, and you never know how the season's truly going to go until we get underway. But I think that a lot of Devils fans can feel better going into the upcoming season with the way both VTech and Akira played. So my second to last question for you, James, is simply this. What are your now that we've gone through the preseason and we're pretty much getting ready to start the year, what are your overall thoughts about this team heading into 2023-24?
yeah, this is a team that I could see taking another step from last season. I could see, that 112-point team that we saw, really establish themselves as one of the NHL's elites. The questions I have about, whether they can do that or not are, is Kevin Ball really the guy he looks like? Is Luke Hughes going to be able to seamlessly transition into that Damon Severson role?
Right.
Because if not, the goaltending maybe isn't upgraded. Maybe it's the same. And if you don't have stronger goaltending and your defense isn't as strong as it was last year, can they keep that pace?
Right.
However, the forward group looks leaps and bounds better than last year, if you can believe it. And you know, it's hard for other teams to score when they don't have the puck. And I
Yeah.
anticipate this offense having the puck a lot. So, there were a lot of career highs for players last year. It wouldn't surprise me to see a lot more career highs this year. Jack Hughes wants to hit 100 points. Timo Meyer is going to have a full year in New Jersey, and he scored 40 goals already last year playing, with the Sharks, the last place San Jose Sharks, right?
Right.
So, Jesper Bratt could potentially work with this insane preseason he's had and take it into the regular season and eclipse 73 points that he scored back-to-back seasons. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that happen. It wouldn't surprise me to see the defense play really well. But in the back of my mind, I always keep the realistic possibility that, okay, maybe there's a bit of a sophomore slump for the team as a whole. Maybe the defense doesn't hold up as well as they thought they might have. Maybe the
Mhm.
goaltending might not hold up as well as they thought they might have. So I do see this team taking that step forward. So long as the stars align, everything goes the way they expect it to, and maybe injuries don't play a factor, or maybe some guys don't play as well as they anticipated. But overall, with the mentality and the competitiveness that was in training camp in the preseason, I definitely expect this team to replicate and maybe even take a step forward from last season.
I think that's about as fair as a assessment and feeling that I think anybody could have, especially looking at this team and the possibilities that could happen, good and bad. So definitely a lot of excitement. Now, I got a fun question for you. It's the last one, and I know you kind of did a review already at your most recent game that you went to at home, but Levi Restaurants now is the food vendor for the New Jersey Devils, and I know you had a chance to try some of their food. So, like, just overall, like, what are your thoughts about like what Levi is going to offer and what you had a chance to try yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wish you asked me a week later because on Wednesday they're hosting us for a tasting.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
yeah, so we'll get
Got
a
to keep
bit of
us
a
updated with that one.
no pun intended, but we'll get a bit of a taste of everything else too.
Love it.
But I tried the chicken tenders and the chicken was great. They
Okay.
were big, they were crispy, they were flavorful. I thought that those were really good. I admittedly don't remember what the other ones tasted like after that, so I was like, yeah, these are A+ for me.
Right.
I'm a chicken tender guy. I like those.
There
The
you go.
French fries were okay though; they were a little dry.
I know Brad Pack also said they were like okay. That's what I
Yeah,
like got a full idea of. So
yeah, a little dry, but they give you a good amount of them, right? You're not going to be
yeah,
if you eat everything, you're not going to be hungry still. So
yeah.
the chicken tenders, I said, I think it was like an 8 out of 10 for me. I
Hey,
was like, those
yeah.
are good. And the French fries were like a 4, and that they could use some work.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I said like when I saw you do the review, I was like, well, it's only preseason, so maybe they're trying to just like get like an idea and stuff. But that's great. And what's funny is that it looked like from the picture that you posted, it just looked like it was just like a full steak at that point. I was just like, that thing looks huge to me. And I know you said it wasn't two pieces; they gave you three, right? It was like there was
Yeah,
one under.
yeah, it was one overlapping another, and I guess it just
Oh,
looked like one giant one. They
yeah,
were good size though. Like I'm not sitting here saying like they were chicken nuggets from McDonald's. Like they were pretty big. Like they would fit the length of my hand at least. So
okay, so there you go. So I that's at least one thing that we can kind of like bang our hopes on. So now we'll see how things progress, and make sure to follow James over on Twitter, so you guys can get the updates for when he gets, as he put it, a taste of everything from Levi Restaurants this season. But James, this was a lot of fun, man. Really appreciate you coming on. But before I let you go, because I do this with all my guests, I like to roll out the red carpet and let you kind of let the folks at home know, where they can follow you on social and also all the stuff you're doing, especially with New Jersey Hockey Now. So the floor is yours, my friend.
yeah, appreciate it. You can follow me at James Nichols NHL. You can follow the website account at NJD Hockey Now. You can read all my work at New Jersey Hockey Now. .com and more things coming. Lots of content ahead. The season's upon us, so we're ready and gearing up to go.
Absolutely. Well, again, James, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it, and we will definitely have you back on the podcast again, my friend. But again, appreciate your time today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Say something.
NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with any offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game this October. And there are so many different games going on that you have to get in on this action. The fun never ends here at DraftKings Sportsbook. Get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources.